and welcome back to my knitting podcast. My name is Sophie, but I'm better known as the Knit Purl Girl over on Instagram, Ravelry and here on YouTube. I'm a full-time knitwear designer living and working in the south of England, and I'm really happy to be here with you today. I'm in a really, really good mood, really perky, so I thought it was a good time to film. I'm aiming this year, I've decided, to do monthly podcasts because otherwise, for a start, it gets out of hand. See my last episode for a case in point. And also I find it's a good way to hold myself accountable to actually get things finished because I want to have them ready to talk about for the next podcast. So it suits my psychology to kind of have that deadline. And it's nice to talk with you. So yeah, in this podcast I talk about my knitwear design, projects and just kind of what's going on. I've had a really good productive month. I've had one piece of news to share and one event. So the piece of news is that I finally can reveal that I have a design in the next issue of Liner magazine coming out, issue 24. It's the Luz sweater. I'll put a picture here. It was... I'm not entirely over it yet. So when I submitted the design, I was in Cologne for H&H, which is a handcraft trade show, and I realised the deadline was the next day and I wanted to submit something because I really liked the brief. So I came up with this idea for a drop shoulder slip stitch rib little number with travelling stitches. I thought it'd be really cool, and it is really cool, but it was by far the most complicated thing I've ever designed because you need to make sure I need to make sure that the stitches would marry up at the underarm. In hindsight, I probably should have just pitched it as a bottom-up design, but even then that would have been quite complicated because sussing out the length, and I still would have had to have worked out how to get the stitches to marry up. It was so complicated, it broke my brain for a bit. I think it's why I didn't have very many summer releases last year, because it was just all my brain power was going on this one design. It was really, really complicated, and I've had techniques come to me in dreams before for like the Farnham sweater short rows to get the points, the stripes to marry up. So yeah, it was a lot of work. I'm really glad it's done. I'm really proud of myself for doing it. And the liner team were so lovely, so no complaints there, but yeah, it was a lot. I'm very pleased to finally have it out in the world, and I hope you like the design. And then I also gave a talk on Ravel Festival this month on representation, knitting, feminism, all that kind of good stuff, which is one of my personal Roman empires. It's something that I'm really interested in. I won't go into what I spoke about here because I want to try and write it up into a more formal argument for an article that I'm either going to try and get published somewhere or self-publish if I can't. But I had a lot of fun kind of getting my thoughts into a more structured, cohesive form, because it is something, like I say, that I think about a lot. I think about crafting and consumerism and knitting and feminism, and like crafting and feminism a lot when I'm knitting away, because I don't know, I listen to a lot of books about these kind of things and I find it very interesting. So yeah, that was really good, and Ravel Festival is always an absolute joy. I live quite near to where it's held, so it's really convenient for me. It's only like a 20-minute drive, and it's really nice because all my friends come to me. So it really feeds my narcissism, but it's always so lovely to catch up with familiar faces that I kind of know from knitting Instagram, and to see all the lovely vendors. It's a good time. The organisers are so lovely, and Farnham is such a beautiful town. I've got I used to work in Farnham when I was a student. I worked in one of the shops there, and it's a nice place. Like, there's a really good Thai restaurant. It's a good time. But yeah, that's kind of enough rambling about that. I've got quite a lot to share with you today. I think because of this talk, I spent a lot of the first half of February procrastinating. I also realised that if I wanted to have my spring summer designs out within a reasonable time frame, I needed to get a wiggle on and get them ready for testing. So it's been very productive. I've got 5 finished objects, which I'm very pleased about. 3 of which you've seen before. 2 are brand new. I've also overcome my fear of 4-ply. I know, big moment. I spoke about this a bit in my last podcast, how 4-ply yarns intimidate me, but I've kind of faced my fear a bit this month, and I'm very proud of myself. I'll start by talking about what I'm wearing. This is the Luz Sweater. This is actually available from today. There'll be a discount code and a link below. I spoke about this quite extensively in my previous episodes. If you want the full rundown, that would be the one to watch. It is a raglan sweater with a mixture of slip stitch and stockinette, finished with quite a lot of nice details. So there's lateral braids, eyelets, this slip stitch texture. It has eyelets in the collar, thick raglans. The pattern continues at the underarm. It's nice, I really like it. I designed this for my wedding but didn't end up wearing it because I was sufficiently champagned up. And yeah, it's available. Information below. I'm going to make a cardigan version of this too, but I'll talk about cardigans more down the road. But I haven't even thought about it beyond choosing the yarn, so yeah. Anyway, on to the good stuff. Okay, so I will start with the newest finished object. I literally finished this last night. I blocked it on my heated airer overnight and it is just about dry. I can't remember if I've said about this before, but heated airers for drying knitting is an absolute revelation. I bought my first one a few years ago. They will dry most knitted pieces overnight. They're quite cheap to run and they're just really useful if you live in a cold house like I do. I would never go back to not having one. I love mine. It's a 3-tier thing, it's great. Anyway, enough about heated airers. This is the cardigan project that I showed you very briefly. If I move over so I'm not in this stream of sunlight. And Lucy and Stitch cardigan project that I did briefly talk about last month. When I showed you it last time, it was kind of only up to here, didn't have sleeves, didn't have button band. So I've kind of worked on this quite furiously over the weekend to get it finished because I wanted to talk about it and because I really want to wear it, more importantly. I still need to get some buttons, but I'm quite particular about the colour that I want. I really want rosewood buttons. I want some in this kind of really like dark mahogany, very dark brown. But where I live there aren't any shops that sell buttons like that, so I need to go over to a Hobbycraft and pick some up there probably. If not, I'll try and find some online, but I don't really want to have to do that, so yeah, I'll figure it out. But yeah, this is a drop shoulder and Lucy and Stitch and stockinette stitch cardigan. It's all of the main bits all worked in Andalusian stitch, which is one of my favourite stitches. When I first started designing, it was the stitch that I used pretty much exclusively. It was kind of the thing then. So I got into designing in 2020 and a lot of us kind of had a signature stitch, which was quite cute. But yeah, makes me very nostalgic. So yeah, this is what it looks like. So there's lots of, ooh, actually I might be as well off, so you can see the texture there. So it's got panels of stockinette stitch and then some garter stitch as well. And then at the underarm as well, that is all stockinette stitch. I hope you can see that okay. Sorry, this is not ideal. It's very, the light this time of year is very harsh. So I've got one of my curtains closed so I can kind of, you can see me okay. Otherwise it's just a bit glary. But yeah, and then it's finished with 1x1 rib. I've got fluff somewhere in my mouth. 1x1 rib and just some very simple finishing. I just did normal knitted cast offs for this project. It's the first time I've not done, no that's not true, I've done quite a lot of knitted cast offs this month. But yeah, I didn't do an Italian bind off, I just did knitted because I really wanted to keep it simple and I wanted the quite graphic line. I'll have some B-roll of me trying this on. This is made with Gepard Pura Lana in the shade 492 Plum. That is what the colour looks like in different lights. It is a very rich, plummy shade of burgundy. I spoke about this yarn quite a lot in the last episode because I've used it for quite a lot of projects lately and I really like it. I think it is ridiculously soft and squishy and just nice. Gepard yarn is on the whole quite pricey, but it is really good. It's really nice stuff. They do a lot of very interesting blends of fibres, so they've got quite a lot of like wool cotton, wool alpaca blends that I really like, and their colours are so lovely. They do really nice clear bright colours which I'm really drawn to, and then quite subtle jammy colours like this one, which yeah, I just think it's so lovely. That's 115 meters in 50 grams. I can't work out what that is in yards in my head. Call it 125, 130. It knits up really beautifully. It's quite hard to describe, and this is something I spoke about a bit in the last episode. You do get the best of both worlds with this blend. So you get all of the drape of alpaca, but then you do get kind of the substance of the wool, which I think is really nice, especially for a textured stitch pattern like this one. It did make checking the row gauge quite difficult. I had to get I was constantly using my little mini steamer to check that the sleeves were the right length, and I think it's worked out really nicely. I'm going to do a sweater version of this as well with some yarn that I've got in stash, but I don't know, I haven't quite decided. As you can see from the footage of me trying it on and just kind of holding it, this is very floppy and very floppy. And one of the yarns I'm considering is I'll show you. I picked this up at Unravel Autumn in September, and this is organic Shetland wool from Middle Camp Scott Farm in Devon. Oh, I'm camping near there in May, that's exciting. And it looks like this. It is a, what's the best way to show you? Beigey sheepy grey. Really nice. It's a woolen spun yarn. Oh, this should work out okay actually. So it's 110 meters and 50 grams, 119 yards. So this might actually be a really good option, but it has got a lot of body to it. It has a lot more memory than the Pura Lana. And they feel completely different. So I'm not sure. I think I need to make another swatch, like a bigger swatch, and see how I feel, but I would like to use this. I think it is really beautiful yarn, and I think it would be nice to have a more neutral option for a sweater version of this pattern. I don't know, I need to have a bit of a think and a bit of a swatch, so I'm gonna go for a very casual lean. Otherwise I have other yarn in stash that I could use, but I like the idea of having a more structured sweater, because this has got some split hems, and I like the idea of it being quite graphic. So that is what the split hem looked like. I didn't do a very deep split hem this time, and I usually make the back longer by about an inch, 2 inches, like 2.5, 5 centimeters. But I didn't fancy it, and I was conscious of running out of yarn, because I initially picked up, I started by, so I went to make this first sleeve once I'd gotten to about here on the body, because I like to kind of check how everything's fitting, but I picked up at too high a rate, so I was picking up 4 stitches for every 5 rows worked, which is my normal pickup rate because I've got very tight row gauge, but actually I need to be picking up at 3 stitches for every 4 rows worked. And yeah, I just had like loads of stitches. The sleeve was going to be like 60 centimeters in circumference, which is a lot bigger than I need it. So I was panicking initially, like, oh, am I going to run out of yarn? But no, it was fine. I was just not knitting very accurately. I'm really pleased with this. It's called the Lucy cardigan. The tension, I actually haven't double checked, is 20 stitches and 30 rows. So it's the same gauge as for the Hannah slipover, which is coming out at the end of March. So yeah, that's good to know that my gauge is consistent in stockinette and in Lucy in stitch. But yeah, really pleased with this. I think it's going to be very useful for me. I have a glut of sweaters and I don't have enough cardigans. So I'm trying to remedy that by knitting some more cardigans, because I've got quite a lot of blouses that have a lot of, sorry, I keep on leaning, quite a lot of detail, and it just, I don't know, they don't sit very well under sweaters, but I want to wear them. It's very hard for me. So yeah, that's the idea behind making more cardigans. But yeah, that is the Lucy all done. So on to the next one. Okay, next. So as I mentioned at the top, I realised that I needed to start working quite intensely on my summer designs in order to have them out at a reasonable time, because there's no point launching a summer pattern at midsummer, because people, you know, you kind of want to have stuff ready to go a little bit sooner than that, really. So I've got 2 brand new that you haven't seen before designs. Here they are. So the first is the Billie Tee. This is in testing as of last week. It's gotten a bit creased from where it's been folded for a few days since I photographed it, but it is the garment that got me over my fear of 4-ply. that's it. It is an oversized drop shoulder, there's a theme here, t-shirt made with Knitting for Olive pure silk in the shades Cream and Cardamom. So at the end of the last podcast, I mentioned that I had cast on a project with Knitting for Olive pure silk held double, and I immediately hated it. I realised I'd done the maths wrong, so I had I'd snuck an extra set of increases in, and it just looked like arse. It was not good. So I was like, oh, I just need to suck it up and get over my issues with 3mm needles, US 2.5, and I did. I'm very proud of myself. I did give myself minor hand strain trying to knit this in too short a time because I needed to get into testing. It was a whole thing. I think, so this was the week before I gave the talk at Unravel, and I was just furiously procrastinating, getting my thoughts written down because I'm a chronic procrastinator, and yeah, it was not me at my best. But yeah, anyway, so I keep on saying but yeah, this is what it looks like. So it has some very nice simple finishing. If you notice that there's a line of weird tension across the shoulders, it's because I had to do some sweater surgery. I'd initially made the shoulders a bit too shallow, so I try and get out the beam of light. So the neck was a bit shallow, a bit short, so I had to cut and rejoin with grafting, which was a whole thing. It was quite stressful. Had to rip a collar out that I'd already knitted and redo it, but it was worth it. So yeah, if you noticed a line of weird tension, that's the grafting that I did. It's got very minimal finishing, which was a conscious choice to try and keep it feeling very relaxed. It's called the Billie Tee because it's named after Billie Eilish. I'm not a particular Billie Eilish fan. I think she's fine. I like some of her songs, but I like how distinctive her personal style is. It's not my personal style, but I like it for her, and the kind of very oversized relaxed fit reminded me of her, so that's why it's called that. And it's quite like an effortlessly cool, in a way that I could never be, look. So yeah, that's the rationale behind the name. The collar is just worked in stockinette, and it's left to roll slightly. Before it was blocked, it was rolling more, so it almost looked like an I-cord from the wrong side out. And then the sleeves and the hem are finished with sewn hems. I prefer sewing down my stitches to knitting down. I can never get enough stretch in a knitted hem. Same with the collar. I always sew down my collars because I just can't get it stretchy enough otherwise. So yeah, I do recommend sewing in the pattern, but you do you. As I say, this is in testing at the moment. It's going to be released, if I look at my calendar, at the end of June. So this is quite a long test knit because there is just a lot of knitting in it. I think it has about 15 to 20 centimetres positive ease. So what's that in inches? 6 to 8 inches positive ease, I think, for most sizes. Is that right? Yeah. So I can't think in imperial measurements at all. Again, I'll have B-roll of me trying this on. I think it's going to be really nice in the warm weather. Knitting for Olive pure silk is a really unusual yarn. If I grab a ball of it, here we go. So this is what it looks like in the ball, in the sun, in direct light. Cream is a very true white. It is quite slightly yellow toned, but it is pretty, it's white. It's 250 meters per 50 gram ball, so it's the same as all of the Knitting for Olive fingering weight yarns. Again, sorry, I can't work out what that is in yards in my head. Like 270-ish yards, 60-ish, 70-ish, something like that. So the way that they harvest the silk, they allow the moths, the silk moths, to be born. I'm butchering, this is not a good explanation. I'll leave a link below to the Knitting for Olive kind of cruelty-free stuff. But it produces a silk yarn that is less smooth, has a lot more texture than a lot of other silk yarns. I really like it. It doesn't feel great in the ball. I think a lot of people, when they first try it, are quite underwhelmed because it isn't particularly cheap, and you think silk, ooh, smooth, luxury. And this isn't what that is. It has texture, it has quite a matte finish, which I think catches a lot of people by surprise. But it's really lovely. Oh, I should add on this, the sleeves have no shaping at all. They are just kind of left. Again, that's very part of the very casual style that I'm going for. I will see what the testers think about that, and I can add some sleeve shaping if they want it, but as written at the moment, the pattern has no sleeve shaping. The tension for this is, I've got it written down over there, 28 stitches, 37 rows or rounds. Again, I've got very tight row gauge, so yeah, and that's under 3mm US 2.5 needle. I really enjoyed making this. I definitely found that having the stripes helped. So I would say that if you're like me and find the idea of a fingering weight garment, 4-ply weight garment, quite intimidating, do stripes, because I only ever had to do 10 rounds, 20 rounds, 10 rounds, 20 rounds, and then it made it much more manageable rather than I've got to knit 35 centimetres in stockinette. Oh my god, how am I going to manage that? So that really helped psychologically. I definitely recommend doing that. But yeah, I think this is going to be really lovely and useful. I wear a lot of t-shirts and jeans in the summer because it's never super hot here, really. It's very humid where I live when it's hot, so something like a silk yarn is ideal. But yeah, that's the Billie Tee for you. I'm planning on making a second sample in some merino wool. I've got some left over from a few different projects from my Luz sweater. I've got some navy blue no waste wool from Knitting for Olive, which was gifted when they launched that yarn, but I've got a lot left. I think I've got enough for like 2 or 3 sweaters, so this would be quite a good way to use it up. And I think that using a yarn with a bit more stretch than the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk, because this has no stretch, zero elasticity, I think that might be quite nice, and it makes the idea of doing a second sample a lot less intimidating, even though it'd all be one colour. But yeah, that's the idea there. The other summer design that I've been working on is this one. This is called the Lise top, Lise, and it is a fun little kind of long sleeve t-shirt, summer sweater, knitted blouse, whatever you want to call it, with my favourite construction at the moment, which is the hybrid drop shoulder, contiguous shoulder method that I've been using a lot. I used it for my Hannah slip over, which again, see last episode, and also for the Juno sweater, more on which shortly. But I didn't do a full drop, it's kind of in between, so it kind of, I think my tech editor worked out it had about 6.5 centimetres ease from kind of what you would do for a slip over or a true contiguous shoulder to where this sits. It kind of sits right on your shoulder point. And the sleeves are worked in double broken rib, 2x2 broken rib. Very pretty. And then the shoulder detail is nice, so you're establishing the 2x2 rib in the shoulder. So this is made with my favourite warm weather yarn combination, which is Gepard CottonWool 3 and Isager Trio 1 in the shades. Ooh, what the shades? I know that it's Frost for Trio 1. Can't remember what it is for the Gepard CottonWool 3. Let me grab what I've got left of the yarn. Never mind, I can't find it. I've put it somewhere weird. But yeah, they're pretty much the same shade of ice blue. So Frost is a really good name for that Trio 1. I love this top. I'm thrilled with how this has worked up. I was working on, I was trying to finish something else. I can't remember what I was trying to finish. And the idea came to me and I had to stop myself from casting on immediately. I think I didn't have enough 4mm needles. So it was a good way to be like, no, Soph, wait, you can't do this. But yeah, the neckline, similar to the Billie Tee, it has a rolled neckline, and this is still staying quite rolled, which I really like. It's just really simple and I think quite elegant. I'm already planning a sweater and a cardigan version. So that navy blue wool that I got in Sweden, in Stockholm, that I showed at the end of the last episode, I'm going to use that for the cardigan, and I've got some other yarn for the sweater, but I'm not going to talk about those today because I haven't even started. I've swatched, but I haven't done any of the maths, so I'll wait for another episode to talk about those. But yeah, I love this so much. Again, it's finished just with a regular knitted cast off for the body. This is, I've just got the grading back from my editor yesterday, so I'm going to do the call for testers when I finish filming this actually, so I'll pop something in the community post as well, and I'll keep that open until Sunday. but this is going to be my May release, and the pattern also has options for a short sleeve version, so I need to make myself a version like that, which I'm really excited about. I love this so much. I don't know what else to say about it really. It's 4mm US 6 needles, 22 stitches, 30 rows or rounds, 22 stitches, 30 rows or rounds in stockinette, and then it's slightly tighter tension for the sleeves in the double broken rib. I think it's 24 stitches and also 30 rows. So yeah, that's that. I love it. Not a lot else to say. I think this is going to be so useful because again, it's humid here. This fabric is very cooling. I think Trio 1 is a lovely yarn if you live in a humid climate like I do, because it's quite effective at wicking away moisture and just keeping you cool. It's lovely. I really, really like it. I can't decide what colour I want for a second sample, and I can't also decide what fibre. I think, I don't know, I've got, part of me is like, it would be nice to have one in a different yarn, maybe something a bit softer, a bit more drapey. Well, no, sorry, a bit less drapey actually, because this is, again, like, it's all drape. I don't know, I don't really want to buy any yarn because I bought quite a lot of yarn at Unravel. I'm sure I have something that I can use, but I don't know what yet, and I'd like a more neutral colour. Something off-white would be quite nice, but I don't know. I'll have a think. Oh, so I'm just filming the B-roll for this, but one other detail about the Lise top is that the sleeve is left to be quite loosey-goosey. So you're only doing decreases kind of up to the elbow, and then it kind of flares, oh, that's my tummy, and then it flares out a bit. But yeah, back to B-roll. So I've just moved this around a little bit because there's this very, very bright light, and I don't want to fully close the curtain because then it's too dark. It's the whole thing. Final two finished objects. You've seen both of these before, so I'm not going to go on about them for too long. I finished the pixely sweater. I still haven't decided on a name. Your suggestions were all amazing. I haven't been able to pick one because they're too good. I really liked the references to pointillist art because I love pointillist art. But actually now it's finished, it reminds me of a Magic Eye poster. So I might do something along those lines, I don't know. But yeah, it's done. Again, this is one that I wanted to have finished before the next podcast because it's just satisfying. So I finished this last week because I was avoiding laptop work. But yeah, it is a stradded colour work. It's got 4 colours and then just very, very simple through the body. Lots of rib. Lovely. Not an awful lot to talk about because I spoke about this so much last time. I used Sandnes Garn Gynt in 4 shades. Charcoal Melange, Ash Melange, Dark Grey Blue, Eucalyptus. The greys are from the Petite Knit shade Card, the others are just the normal one, I think. It was a really, really fun project. I found the body a bit of a slog, I won't lie. It was the project I took with me to Unravel to kind of knit on during the talks because my friend Laura gave a talk and my friend Marina gave a talk, and it was nice to knit and listen. But the sleeves weren't too bad to do. I find if I put my mind to it, I can do a sleeve in a day quite easily because I don't have kids, so I don't have anyone to interrupt me basically. But yeah, really pleased with how this has worked up. I think there's a couple of things I do want to tweak grading wise for a second sample. I think I maybe want to adjust the cast on number of stitches and then how the stitches are distributed. I think the sleeves have worked up with a bit too much ease. So I'm going to talk to my tech editor and try and get her input and see if I can adjust that. And then I also want to work on adjusting the chart so that it would work with 3 colours, not 4. So I think that would just be making the collar and the body the same colour, and then you could have both options. And I also like the idea of having it so that every colour change you can have a different yarn, so it's a real stash buster. So for instance, this top bit could be one colour, this next kind of green phase could be another colour, this light bit could be another colour, darker bits, this is the dark grey and the dark blue. You know, kind of every time there's a phase change, just to use up loads of scrap yarn. So I will see about that. I'm going to try and get this into test knitting quite soon. I think, like I said, I need to have a think about how to tweak the grading, and then I need to think about making myself a second sample with that 3 colour option, and then possibly also super colourful use up all my scraps, because that would be quite good. I think that'd be really fun. The pattern is quite simple to write up because circular yokes are so simple. This one does have some raglan shaping at the end of the yoke, because you'd be amazed at how much it improves the fit of a circular yoke. Any kind of bunching you get at the underarm, raglan increases. It directs the stitches is the best way I can think to describe what difference it makes. I did a lot of experimenting with this last summer with one of my summer designs, and it was called Solent Tee. It was quite a tight fitting t-shirt. Put a picture of it here. And the first sample I really loved, but I made it a little bit too small by accident because my maths was wrong, and it was just really bunchy at the underarm. So I made another sample, consciously made it bigger because I thought that the bunching was caused by the size issue. Still looked like I had a nappy in my armpit. And then I was like, oh, raglan increases, let's try it. And that sorted the issue out entirely, which was very satisfying. So yeah, that's the thought process there. So this would be very simple to write up. I think it's 22 stitches. Let me check my gauge. Yep, 22 stitches at 29 rows or rounds. Well, I guess it's all rounds really for this one, 29 rounds. Tension on 4mm US 6 needles, so it's quite a nice solid knit. I do also need to experiment with sizing up a needle size, going up a needle size for the colour work, because there is a slight hump. Yeah, you can just see it there where the colour work finishes, and I think, ooh, do I need to go up to 4.5 US 7 for that? But I don't know. Swatching I don't think would actually really help, because without the weight of the colour work, I don't know. I don't think swatching would really help. I think I just need to knit it and then see what happens. But I don't know. It doesn't bother me too much, but I know from technically it makes it like a not perfect piece of knitting. So it depends how perfectionist I'm feeling, really. It's not super noticeable, but yeah. I feel, knowing what my tension is like on a 4.5, I think the tension would be too loose compared to then the body, because my tension on a 4.5 at the moment is like 20 stitches, so it's quite a big difference. So I don't know, I might make like a children's version or something and see if that can help me suss it out. But yeah, it's very cool. I'm really pleased with it, and it's perfect for, like, it's late February, it's nearly spring, it's starting to really feel like spring, so of course I finished like my most wintry jumper this time of year. That's so typical. And then the final finished object, told you it's been a productive month, is my chunky Juno sweater. So I spoke about this quite extensively again in the last podcast. There is a DK weight version, which I'm not going to talk about beyond saying it's Isager tweed and Isager silk mohair. Shades will be down below, but DK version. And then this is the chunky version, so the pattern is going to contain both gauges. This is made with Knit Pure tweed in this really fabulous, I should put this sense of the colour, really beautiful. It's an off-white base that leans slightly pink, and it has flecks of orange, red, cyan, green, purple, yellow, every beautiful bright clear colour under the sun. It is a joyful yarn, and I held that with Isager silk mohair in the shade 0, I think. It's like their cool toned off-white. Really lovely fabric. I used a 6mm US, what is that in US sizing? 12? No, that's not right. US 10 needle. This design has, again, a very minimal finishing. I'm in like a minimal, she says, wearing like a really detailed, quite maximalist in like texture, if not colour jumper. Very clean details. So it has a mostly stockinette collar with just a couple of rounds of rib at the end, and like the idea was to show off the yarn as much as possible. It's been my head initially, I wanted it to be pretty much entirely stockinette, but the hems kept folding and it was annoying, so I changed tact slightly. And again, this uses the hybrid contiguous drop shoulder method. I spoke about this a lot in the last episode, so if you want the details on that, I'd recommend you go and watch those sections. But basically you are working in a similar way to a contiguous shoulder. So you cast on stitches for the back neck, 1 stitch in the front, and in this case 1 stitch which is going to form the shoulder seam. and then you increase on the right side and the wrong side rows to shape the shoulders. For a contiguous shoulder, you would only work to a certain point, say here. For the Lise top, you're working to about here, and then for the Juno, you're working to a drop shoulder position. I really like this method. It's very easy. It's quite beginner friendly, I think, because you don't have to pick up any stitches to form the shoulders. It's all kind of done in one piece. You leave the shoulder stitch to rest, and then you work the length of the front and back yoke, rejoin in the round, and then you pick up stitches to form the sleeves and resume working that single stitch. In this pattern, I use slip stitches as a little detail down the sleeves, so you're continuing that line. And I just really like it. It's really fun. I think I'm going to use, I bought some Isager Alpaca 3 here recently, and I might use that to make a second sample. But looking at the swatches, I think my tension is slightly off. I think the Alpaca 3 works up slightly tighter than the pure tweed. This is not a very cheap yarn, I will say. I think Ericanite in general, it's lovely, but it is quite expensive, I think, not for what it is, but for the fibre content. This is one of the few cases where Isager is actually cheaper, because I'm pretty sure this is the exact same yarn as Isager Aran Tweed, but the colours for the Ericanite are slightly better. The Isager Aran Tweed shade Confetti is pretty much always out of stock, because I think one of the big Danish designers popularised it, and it's gorgeous, but it's always out of stock. But there's a very similar Ericanite shade. It's just slightly more expensive, but it is really nice. It's a really beautiful wool, and I think it will wear very well. I've only worn this once so far because I needed to keep it in good order for photography, but I wore this to give my talk out on Ravel, and you know what it's like when you're public speaking, you get really hot. So I was like, oh, it was a hot room. So I was just baking. I had to like run out of the room afterwards and take my thermal off because I was wearing a thermal underneath, because it's cold. And yeah, but it's all good, it's all good. The sleeve cap is shaped as some short rows. The tension is, I think, 14 stitches 20 rows on 6mm US 10. Yeah, I used pretty much exactly 6 hanks of this, so it didn't actually use too many meters. This is 100 grams is 160 meters, 175 yards. Really lovely. Like, I can't really recommend it highly enough. It's beautiful. But yeah, I will have a call for testers again for these soon. I think I'm going to release this pattern in September. But yeah, nice long test knits over the summer for both this one and the yet to be named Pixely sweater. So yeah, that is all the finished objects. That's not too bad. Less rambly than last time, marginally. Sorry for the shock change in lighting and scenery, but I'm just editing and I realised that I've missed off a finished object. I also finished my second Ekin sweater sample. However, I don't have it anymore. I gave it to Colourwork, the lovely people there at Unravel. So I don't have that sample now. I'll put a picture of it here, if I move my cup out of the way as well. Put a picture here. Really pleased with how it worked up. The split hem is so fun, and I just did cast offs on the sleeves in the contrast colour. Yeah, really pleased with how it worked up. I think they're going to post it back to me, so when they do, I will show it off again. Yeah, it's been good. It's been a good month for getting stuff finished, and I think that's what I mean when I said that the monthly podcast, I think, is a good way to keep me on track and to stop having works in progress, like just sitting there for ages. If I lose momentum, I tend to not finish things, and that's really wasteful and really annoying. So I find that, yeah, having the knowledge that I need to talk about them with the next podcast, it's really good. It works for me. Okay, works in progress. I've only got 3. There's a couple that I haven't made any progress on since last time we spoke, so I'm not going to talk about those. But no, I've actually only got 2 to talk about, because one of them is the camisole that I showed very briefly at the end of the last episode, and I haven't knitted on it at all, so nothing to talk about there. These are both made with yarns that I bought at Unravel, and let me explain them. The first is another circular yoke colourwork number. It could not be more different to the other one in terms of complexity of design, but it's this really pretty, very simple motif of just kind of every other stitch is a different colour. I love it. It's so sweet. I've done the first kind of 5 centimetres of the body, and I need to put the collar on, and that will make it look a lot better and a lot more finished. But I'm absolutely in love with this, and I'm really looking forward to working on it some more. It is made with John Arbon Textiles Harvest Hues worsted weight. The cable sweater that I'm currently working on is made with their 4-ply in the same yarn, but this is the heavier worsted weight. It is a beautiful yarn. It is so complex. I'll try and get some B-roll showing the colours a bit better, because I think where the light here is so harsh, it's quite difficult. So the base shade, the main colour is Blackthorn, and then the contrast colours are Pomegranate, which is the red, Flax, which is the kind of golden brown, Raindrop, which is the lighter blue, and Silver Birch, which is the silver colour. That is what they look like. Really, really pretty. I had a lot of fun picking these. I was hanging out quite a lot with Rebecca from Crowbear whilst I was there, and my tech editor Rebecca, so it was just, oh, it was amazing. I love my tech editor so much. But Rebecca Crowbear was wearing her Kindra sweater, and I was like, very inspired by the kind of multicolour option, so I was a bit like, yeah, I could go for a bit of that myself. And yeah, these colours with the navy blue, just lovely. It feels like a very like English school pairing, I don't know, school uniform, something about that to me. Big fan of John Arbon Textiles as a company. I'm going to be at the Mill Weekend in June, which I'm really excited about. But they blend all of their colours before the yarn is spun, so you get these really beautiful dimensional colours. It's like the red, for instance, Pomegranate. I'm trying to find the best light to... It is so dimensional and just gorgeous, and Flax as well. This is not a colour I would normally choose because I don't think it really suits me, but for colour work it is lovely. And the kind of greys through Raindrop. Really pretty. I'll show you Silver Birch as well, because why not? I'm a completionist if nothing else. Really, really, really nice. I think I'm going to do some more colour work on the cuffs, because I've really enjoyed that about this sweater actually, is having some detail on the cuff, and I think it would be nice. And then that is what the blue looks like. Sorry to show it so far on this side of the screen, I don't want to move my camera. So the yarn is, as I say, it's Harvest Hues, and it is a blend of 33% Blueface Leicester, 33% Falklands Merino, 33% Swarbles, 200 metres per 100 grams. So these 25 gram mini skeins are 50 metres. So it is ideal for colour work actually. Whatever I've got left over, I'll make some mittens or some Christmas decorations or something with them. But yeah, I think this is going to be really, really lovely, very easy to wear, because it's colour work, but it's quite minimal. I just like the kind of subtle repeats. I think it's really, really pretty. The yarn is just lovely to knit with. It's so bouncy, and this is a weird way to describe yarn, but like, it's juicy. That sounds really icky. It's really, really nice. Like, this is the motto of this podcast now, it's not cheap. If knitting wasn't my job, I don't know how I'd feel about the price. I think because I approach this as a job, it does affect how I view kind of the price of yarn slightly. But it's really nice if you're looking for a way to treat yourself. I would recommend it. There's just such a nice company as well. I like the people a lot. But yeah, that is that. I haven't thought of a name for that one either, but to be honest, that is probably now going to be a design for, when have I scheduled it for? Like next January. So there's no rush. It shouldn't take me much longer to knit up, to be honest, because it's quite a quick knit. But yeah, hopefully test cool fairly soon. I'm trying to give longer and longer test knits because it just makes life easier for everybody. I think it can get complicated. I think you can have too long a test knit sometimes where you kind of lose momentum. But equally, I don't know, I feel like I'm trying to implement a system where, for people who respond well to deadlines like me and are quite deadline sensitive, if you want to get it done in 12 weeks, awesome. If you need longer, awesome. So the longer the better. Like, long lead times is what we're going for. But yeah, that is that. And then the other pattern made with yarn that I bought out on Ravel, this looks insane, is this little t-shirt. Oh no, I tried it on the other day, so it's split across 4 needles, but it's just a nice little stripy tee. I'm halfway through the yoke, and it's another fingering weight 4-ply project, so you know, personal growth. I've gone straight back in. I obviously wasn't burned by the Billie Tee. I enjoyed it enough that I wanted to get straight back into it, although when I was doing the collar on a 2mm needle I was a bit like, oh, this is long-winded. But it's fun. I found some 60 Minutes Australia videos to watch on YouTube, and that kept me going. But this is made with this beautiful yarn from Zakami, who are an Edinburgh-based dyers, who were exhibiting out on Ravel, and they're lovely people. So yeah, this is a really lovely base. This is 50% baby alpaca, 25% linen, 25% silk, 400 meters in 100 grams, 437 yards. So this is the shade, oh no, I'm gonna butcher that pronunciation. Okay, I believe the pronunciation is Kalyak. I'm really sorry to any Gaelic speakers, I'm so sorry. But it's spelled Callilleach, and it is a beautiful copper colour. It is gorgeous. I love these copper colours. They're not something I always reach for because I'm never sure how much it suits me. Also, can we talk about the lack of baby blue in this podcast? Like, I know I snuck one sky blue project in, but personal growth again, I'm doing well. But yeah, it's this lovely colour. And then much easier for me to pronounce, Stardust, which is a very, very Sakami-esque shade if I take out the packaging. It has lilac and yellow speckles. Really, really, really pretty. And it's a kind of off-white base that has shades of light minty blue and peach, kind of very, very, very gentle variegation throughout. It is stunning. And together I think they are really pretty. I bought this on the Friday. I was hanging out with my friend Chu that day, and I got home and immediately had to swatch because I was just so excited. I think it's really nice. I love this fibre blend. I think it is absolutely gorgeous, and I had a lot of fun with the stripe placement in this one. So if you have a look, you'll see that the stripes fall into the neckline, and that is done with Japanese short rows. I used Japanese short rows for this. Did I use no, I think I used German short rows for all but the last turn, and I used a Japanese short row turn for the last purl turn because I find that I get a neater result. But yeah, this is just gonna be a very simple raglan tee. It's got quite a wide neck. I normally like my crew necks quite tight to my neck, but I'm trying to get more comfortable with having them a bit wider because I think that's more popular. And it can feel a bit more relaxed. So for a summery tee, I thought that'd be nice. I won't show what this looks like on yet because it's not going to look good because there's not enough yoke yet to kind of see. But I'm going to resume knitting this week, and then I think this is going to be my August pattern for this year. And I'm also going to use that Gartner yarn, this Gartner yarn that I showed in the last episode, to make that instead of a Hannah slipover. I'm going to use something else for a Hannah slipover. That's the plan. Not enough to say about this yet really because there isn't enough to show, but this is in the works. I'm not normally a huge hand-dyed yarn person, and since I've been going to Unravel I think 2021 was the first Unravel I went to. I think I went to one when I was a kid because my mum knew somebody who was displaying there. But yeah, as an adult and as a knitter, I started going in 2021, and there was a lot more hand-dyed yarn on superwash bases, which is lovely. I respect it. It's not my personal cup of tea. So I'm quite pleased with how many more non-superwash dyers and vendors are there now. I really like it. For me, it's a very positive development. For others, it will be a shame, but you know, horses for courses. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed Unravel this year. It was just nice. And I reckon that is us for today. It's been a pleasure sitting and chatting with you. I hope you've enjoyed watching. If you've got any questions for me or any comments or feedback, let me know. I hope I haven't spoken too quickly, and I hope this blinding sunlight hasn't been too irritating. Kind of go from it being too dark and rainy in the last episode to like really intense sunlight today. The joys of British weather. But yeah, I hope that you are all keeping well wherever you are in the world, and I will talk to you in about a month. Bye!